They say Medusa was a monster, a threat, a nightmare with snake hair. But what if I told you that everything you've heard until now is wrong? That the real ancient story was buried by proud gods and convenient versions? What no one told you is that behind those eyes that turned men to stone, there was an innocent young woman, punished for being too beautiful, too desired, and in the end, betrayed by the very gods she served. This isn't just another myth from ancient times. It's a real story about power, injustice, revenge, and transformation. And once you discover how Medusa became the creature everyone feared, you might start seeing those statues a little differently. There's no fairy tale villain here. What you're about to uncover is one of Olympus's biggest scandals, and you're about to dive into it right now. Long before she became a symbol of terror, Medusa was a young woman of extraordinary beauty. They say her hair shone like threads of gold, and her eyes could hypnotize even the bravest warrior. She wasn't born a monster, not at all. She was a mortal who served as a priestess in the temple of the goddess Athena. Loyal, pure, and devoted, she lived far from the rumors and dark legends that would one day bear her name. But it was that very beauty that led her down a tragic path. Poseidon, god of the seas, became obsessed with her, and as was common in mythology, he took what he wanted without permission. Inside the sacred temple, an unthinkable act took place, and Athena, instead of punishing the real culprit, turned her wrath on Medusa. She transformed the young woman into something no one would dare admire again. After being assaulted by Poseidon inside the sacred temple, Medusa was punished by Athena with a horrifying transformation. As punishment for defiling the sacred place, even against her will, Athena stripped her of everything that once made her admired. Her beautiful hair was replaced with living snakes, twisted and threatening. There was no peace. They constantly moved, ready to strike. What once enchanted, now terrified. The snakes weren't just a metaphor, they were real. They hissed, writhed, and rose aggressively at the slightest approach. It was all part of the divine punishment. Medusa could no longer hide or return to normal life. Her very presence became a warning. The transformation was as brutal as it was symbolic, sealing her fate as one of the most feared figures in ancient history. Condemned to live in isolation, Medusa was cast out to a remote corner of the world, far from human contact. Her curse made her a lonely creature, avoiding anyone who might suffer just by looking at her. Her name began to be whispered like that of a monster, though the pain of the woman she once was still echoed behind it. And the transformation didn't end there. Something even more dangerous came with her gaze. After her transformation was complete, Medusa gained a terrifying power. Anyone who looked into her eyes turned to stone. There was no escape, no exception, just one look, and you were frozen in time forever. This wasn't a power she asked for or could control. It was yet another layer of Athena's cruel curse. Anyone who tried to fight her would turn into a statue before even raising a sword. Her petrifying gaze made her even more feared throughout Greece. Warriors avoided saying her name, and kings sent soldiers who never returned. The cave she lived in was filled with stone statues, men, heroes, adventurers, all victims of the same mistake. The fear around her grew so much that Medusa became the ultimate symbol of destruction. No one wanted to face her directly. And so, her legend spread like wildfire. But the same power that kept people away also attracted the attention of the gods and of some ambitious heroes. One of them was Perseus, son of Zeus, who was given a nearly impossible mission: defeat Medusa and bring back her head. But there was a catch. She was believed to be invincible. Or was she? There's a detail in the story that few know, and it might explain how someone managed to defeat the creature who turned everything to stone. Though she was a Gorgon, Medusa was the only one of her sisters who wasn't immortal. Her sisters, Stheno and Euryale, couldn't die, but Medusa had a different fate. That made her a possible target and, of course, attracted the attention of fame-seeking heroes. That's how Perseus was sent to kill her in a mission given by King Polydectes. He didn't go alone. He received help from the gods to carry out this nearly impossible task. Athena, in a twist of irony, gave Perseus a polished shield to use as a mirror. Hermes gave him winged sandals. Hades lent him the helmet of invisibility. With all this, Perseus reached Medusa's lair without being seen. Using the shield's reflection, he approached her as she slept. Without ever looking directly at her, he raised his sword and cut off her head with a single strike. Even in death, Medusa remained a figure of power. Her head still had the ability to turn anyone to stone with just one look. Perseus kept the trophy and used it in several battles, a weapon no one dared to face. But the blood from that final cut gave birth to something even more astonishing. Creatures that seemed straight out of the deepest parts of mythology. After beheading Medusa, Perseus didn't just carry her head as proof of his feat. He turned it into one of the most feared weapons in ancient history. Even separated from her body, the head still held the power to petrify any living being with a simple glance. It was like carrying lightning in a bag, a final, unstoppable weapon. Perseus knew how powerful it was and didn't hesitate to use it. Legend says he only had to lift the cloth covering the head, and his enemies would instantly turn to stone. On his way back, Perseus faced countless dangers and enemies, and Medusa's head was his trump card in many of those battles. In one of the most famous stories, he used it to save his future wife Andromeda by turning the sea monster that threatened her into stone. He also used it to punish King Polydectes, who had only sent him on the mission hoping he would die. When Perseus returned, he revealed the Gorgon's head and turned the king and his court into statues. Later, in a symbolic gesture, Perseus offered Medusa's head to the goddess Athena, who placed it at the center of her shield, the famous Aegis. The image became a symbol of protection and divine power on the battlefield. So, what began as a curse became a sacred artifact, used by the very goddess who once condemned Medusa. But the story still held one last extraordinary twist, something that was born from the Gorgon's severed neck. Right after Medusa was beheaded, something astonishing happened. From the blood that spilled from her neck, two powerful mythological creatures emerged, both of great importance in ancient stories. One of them was Pegasus, the winged horse, who soared into the sky as soon as he touched the ground. The other, lesser known but equally mighty, was Chrysaor, a warrior wielding a golden sword. Both were born from Medusa's union with Poseidon and had remained hidden until the moment of her death. Pegasus became a symbol of freedom and speed, and would later be tamed by Bellerophon to defeat the Chimera. Chrysaor, though less famous, was known for his bravery and strength. These two beings weren't born from a womb, but from a brutal act, sealing a tragic bond between violence and creation. The myth shows how something magnificent can emerge from destruction, even if it's wrapped in pain. The presence of these creatures only expanded Medusa's legendary impact. To the very end, the story of the Gorgon continued to surprise. Her death didn't erase her importance. On the contrary, it magnified it. Pegasus flew to the skies, Chrysaor followed his own path, and Medusa remained immortalized in mythology. Her tale, full of injustice, punishment, and power, echoed across generations. And to this day, in every good story of monsters and heroes, her name never fails to appear. Now that you know the true story of Medusa, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you keep believing the convenient versions you were told? Or will you start questioning everything, even what seems obvious? If this story made you think, moved you, or gave you a new perspective, leave a comment below. Do you think Medusa was truly a villain, or just a victim of history? And of course, if you want to keep discovering legends, myths, and ancient stories that reveal much more than they seem, Like this video, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That way you won't miss a single episode and can keep traveling with me through more amazing stories.